What's up? This is Mr. Whitby, and today we will be going over the Bill of Rights. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So in 1787, the Americans had a constitutional convention, and the Constitution was written. The Constitution is pretty much a written document that outlines the structure of the American government. It establishes the function of all three branches of government. So in 1788, the Constitution was ratified, meaning that the political leaders debated and voted on and agreed to make the Constitution a binding legal document. In 1789, George Washington was inaugurated as the first president under that Constitution. He is not actually the first president of the United States because there were presidents under the Articles of Confederation. He is the first official president because he's the first president under our current Constitution. In 1791, the Bill of Rights was ratified. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the first 1 through 10, the first 10 amendments. The Bill of Rights is a list of rights protected by the Constitution in the first 10 amendments. A Bill of Rights is a list of rights. Rights are things that individuals have and the government can't take away from us. They are protections from the government. So one thing that it has several amendments, and the word to amend means to change or to add in addition of the Constitution. All right, so let's look at the First Amendment here. So our First Amendment guarantees us that we have the freedom of speech, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom to petition. What do they mean by the freedom of, let's look at these freedoms. Freedoms of religion means that you can organize, go to any type of church, synagogue, temple, anything like that. You have a freedom of speech. Freedom of speech allows you to say certain things, to criticize the government, as long as your speech doesn't cause like physical harm to anyone, or you're not making threats. You pretty much can say what you want to, criticize the government, express yourself through speech. You have the freedom of press. That means that we'll have like a press. What do they mean by press? News outlets that inform the people of what the government is doing. And you have the freedom to assemble and to petition. So when you feel like the government has done something wrong, you have the freedom to assemble and protest and that type of stuff because of the First Amendment. So these are the things that the First Amendment protects. If you go down. All right, so let's look at the Second Amendment. Our Second Amendment protects American citizens in the right to bear arms, as well as the right to form a militia. A lot of people just think about bearing arms. So when we say bear arms, we're saying the right to own guns, the right to own guns, but also we have the right to assemble. Go ahead and just sit down right there. Okay. All right, our Third Amendment. Our Third Amendment prevents us from having to quarter soldiers, and the quartering of soldiers that means that you allow soldiers to like live in your quarters. Also, no soldier shall be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. That means that we cannot be forced to basically have soldiers live in our houses. And that's something that's important because that was what the redcoats or the British were doing in right coming into the American Revolution. And this pretty much is stating that during the American Revolution, the redcoats were forcing American citizens to allow their military people to live with them. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects the people from unreasonable searches and seizures. This means that the police must have a warrant to enter our homes. It also means that the government cannot take our things of paper without a valid warrant based on probable cause, given a good reason and or suspicion. So the Fourth Amendment provides American citizens with property rights, and your property, your things cannot just be infringed upon by the government. They can't just be searched because the government wants to do it. It outlines rules and establishes how you can do that. Authorities execute a search warrant on a St. Louis couple who pointed guns at protesters. Authorities in, so this is, I guess, an example. All right, so let's look at the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment gives you due process. Due process according to the law. The Fifth Amendment protects people from being held for committing a crime unless they are properly indicted. So you have to be accused by the government. The government has to file paperwork telling you what you are accused of and letting you know what crimes you committed and what they are trying you for. Also, with the Fifth Amendment, you may not be tried twice for the same crime. That's called double jeopardy. We have no double jeopardy. If you beat a case, the government can't come back around and try you for the same thing twice. Now, sometimes that does happen. You can have a case that you have to fight twice, but that's when they file charges on you on the state and the federal level. But if you beat a case on a state level, they cannot try you for the same case. Even if they found new evidence, they cannot retry the case. Also, the Fifth Amendment prevents you from testifying against yourself in court. So you don't have to testify against yourself. You can't be forced to testify against you to tell on yourself. Now, what ends up happening is if you are married and you have a wife and your wife knows that you committed the crime, your wife could also be protected by the Fifth Amendment and won't have to testify. So you have the Miranda case, which is very famous. That's why whenever someone is arrested, they are read their what they call the Miranda rights. So established in 1697, Ernesto Miranda was arrested in Phoenix for kidnapping and rape. He was pretty much forced to confess, but the confession was basically, while giving the confession, he was not made aware of his rights. Ernesto was convicted of the kidnapping and rape, and eventually the Supreme Court overturned his conviction. They retried and found him guilty, but basically his conviction was overturned because the police did not read him his rights, and that's now called being Mirandized. So at this point, the police are required to inform you of your rights whenever you are arrested. So you'll hear you have been arrested, you have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say or do will be held against you in a court of law. You have a right to attorney. These are your Miranda rights. This is what's read to you, and that happens because of the Fourth and especially the Fifth Amendment. All right, so let's look at the Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment guarantees that American citizens have speedy and you can get a public trial. Why is this important? This is important because you don't want to just be held on an accusation that you committed a crime for years. That's a violation of your rights. You know, the government has to inform you what you did and why you are being held, and then they also have to allow you to have a speedy and a public trial. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a speedy trial. You can't be kept in jail for over a year without a trial. It also guarantees that you have an impartial jury. So basically a jury that's willing to be fair, that's willing to hear your case, and doesn't already just think you're guilty. That the accused can't confront the witnesses against them. So whenever someone accuses you of a crime or say that they saw you commit a crime, you get to see who those people are, you get to know who those people are, and it becomes public information if you testify or something against a witness. The accuser also, according to the Sixth Amendment, must be allowed to have a lawyer. And therefore, if you can't afford a lawyer, the state gives you a public defendant, is what they're called. Let's go to the Seventh Amendment. The Seventh Amendment, citizens are guaranteed a trial by jury. The Seventh Amendment guarantees that the right to a speedy civil trial. A civil trial differs from a criminal trial. So a civil trial, if you guys don't know, a civil trial deals more with money. It's when someone sues you because you've done something to them rather than you going, you know, strictly to prison. So a civil trial deals more with money. Criminal trial is about your freedom, you losing your freedom. So a civil trial is about you losing your property. I hope I keep emphasizing that, so I hope you guys get that. And like the last thing says, a criminal trial is when a state tries to convict someone of a crime. So a criminal trial concerns your freedom. A civil trial concerns your property and your money. All right, so we have the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment. So the Eighth Amendment guarantees that no one receives excessive bail and unusual punishment. Cruel and unusual punishment is prevented. So, you know, if you are convicted of stealing something, according to the Eighth Amendment, when carried out correctly, you can't receive the death penalty because you have been accused of stealing. So what the Eighth Amendment does, it guarantees that punishments will be fair and not cruel, and that you don't have unusually large fines. You have the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment says that all of the rights not listed in the Constitution belong to the people, not the government. So what that means is currently we are in the technological ages. There are rights that haven't been pretty much invented because there are things that have not been invented. And so basically what this saying is, if there are rights that we haven't thought of and we haven't listed in the Bill of Rights, that those rights belong first and foremost to the people. They give you examples: the right to work, home ownership, education. In other words, the rights of the people are not limited to just the rights listed in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment. So the 10th Amendment kind of gives you one of those broad statements. Also, the 10th Amendment states that any power not granted to the federal government belongs to the states or to the people. So if there's ever a new right, like let's say that they invent something that allows cars to not just drive on the street, but actually fly. That right belongs to the people, and if there is a government regulation of it, it should happen on the state level. So the 10th Amendment basically gives the states some power and gives them some say according to our Constitution. So just to kind of finish it off, you guys should know that the first 10 amendments to the Constitution is called the Bill of Rights. The purpose of these 10 amendments is to protect your personal rights and freedoms, to make sure that the government doesn't get too big and take away your rights. Thank you. You guys can go ahead, take to these questions, answer these questions. This will help you complete your assignment.